with parallel, the idea when you're making a movie or story, having one theme is difficult enough. But I think what's
Yeah.
great about your film is you're like there's a multiverse as far as the timeline goes, but as there's a multiverse when it comes to the themes. And is that one of the many reasons why this was a passion project for you? The fact that you're exploring so many different types of themes in this story.
Yes, completely. That's actually one of the main things that made me, become so passionate about the script, wanting to do this film so much that I felt, we've seen stories about parallel universes before, but never from this point of view where it's more of a classic fable of playing with the fire from the gods, a classic story of these four entrepreneurs finding this, infinite portals to opportunities and at the same time it's just a story of four friends and and how the relationships are completely shattered by their ambition with this portal, so I always say parallel. For me, I describe this film more like a character drama with hints of sci-fi, because if you really look at the characters, all the connections between each character and the other is very strong. And at the same time, on top of that, you have their ambition, the parallel universes plot, and then like you barely see what happens in each universe, how they get wealthier, how they take gadgets. It all happens too fast. I feel like there are almost 100 movies within parallel, so I think that's exactly what you mean, where it's a very ambitious film where it could be about a million different things. And I like those movies that you see the tip of the iceberg and you have to imagine all the rest. Like you have to imagine, okay, how they learned how to use the mirror better, how they got all this technology from other worlds, how they became wealthier, etc. All that you have to put together in your mind, because the film is just moving at great speeds. And I feel the priority in the film, it's not even the parallel universes or the gadgets or the technology, or the priority on the film is the characters and their relationships, their dynamics. And that's what I think makes the film more, I always say this is for me like a Flatliners meets The Social Network in a way.
Yeah.
It's a film about four friends that discover these infinite possibilities and how their ambition ends up destroying them. So yes, that was completely one of the things that attracted it more about this project, the huge ambition and scope, and the many themes we play with.
Can you just talk about your opening? I thought the opening of the film was amazing, and just getting Kathleen Quinlan for just to pretty much anchor or set things off. Can you just talk about the creative genesis behind that? Because I thought it was really well done on your part.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, the opening was one of the things. When I read the script, I was like, wow, like that got me right on in the first few pages, And I like how I always say this movie is like the classic meets the modern in a way, like that opening scene and some other parts, maybe closer to the ending, have more of a kind of like a Hitchcock, De Palma kind of vibe, even like a Dario Argento,
Gento.
Lucio
Yeah.
Fulci,
Yeah.
Carpenter in a way. And then in the middle of the film, it looks completely like a modern film with with montages and cuts and stuff that could remind you more of a Darren Aronofsky or Danny Boyle kind of movie. So it's just a combination of two very opposite references, something very classic and very modern, that also got me excited about doing parallel. And I feel like that opening scene makes you think you're going to watch a different type of movie than the one you're going to watch, like you first see that, and like that could be the opening of a film in the 80s or in the 70s, and then suddenly you see these guys, trying to sell like a parking app and all that, and you're like, oh, okay, like this is so. But that's what parallel is. Parallel is the classic meets the modern. So with cinematographer Karim Hussein, we really tried to make that opening really shine, really look like a Giallo kind of thing. And getting Kathleen Quinlan was just amazing. Like, I'm a huge fan of her since Event Horizon, or like she's done some really interesting genre picks, like The Hills Have Eyes, like Event Horizon, and we were so happy when we could actually get her on the set. That was all. We shot that in one day. That's the day we had the techno crane. It was an amazing day. And I remember it was just a beautiful experience working with her. Super professional, super talented, super gifted. Like, she could just everything I wanted her to do, she could do it with her eyes. And I remember her look was just very, very impressive. So yeah, it was quite an honor working with her. Yeah.
You know, when filmmakers and just people in the know trying to make their indie film, you know, what I love about your film is it has an indie budget, but it doesn't look like a cheap movie. The production value is high. And for you, what is there a secret sauce or key ingredient as far as working with a certain budget, but making it really value added as far as the visual look and the actual production design of it all?
Yes, well, actually, I'm glad you noticed that, because that was all our intention, to make sure that the film would look bigger than what it actually is. Because yeah, it's an indie budget. We shot for 23 days. Like, you couldn't imagine the amount of locations and scenes and dialogue and action and fights and montages and stuff we need to do in 23 days. So I feel like there's a lot, like literally, there's a lot of cuts in the movie. There's just so many different, scenes and landscapes and moments. And I feel it's about making sure you spend your money in what can be seen on the screen. Like, the money doesn't go to the biggest cameras or the biggest hardware or whatever, or more for getting the good production design, for the special effects, for getting great actor, the wardrobe, the everything that will actually be seen on the screen, and so that's one thing of it, is making sure you spend in what's shown on the screen. The other thing is learning to make decisions fast, because I love people ask me, what do you do every day? What's your job? Your job as a film director, your job is making decisions. That's it. From, I want this t-shirt to be red or green, like the t-shirt of the character, to huge decisions in the editing and whatever. And the problem when you have limited budget is you have limited time too. That's a challenge with the budget. Like I told you, we had 23 days, so you cannot spend half a day talking to an actor, deciding if you put the camera this way, that way. You have to think fast, and that's something you learn from doing in the budget. This is actually my third film, and the first two movies I did in Mexico, they had even more limited budget. So luckily, and then for my short films before and all that, luckily I had already a vast experience in shooting with low resources. But yes, I mean, it's all about that, making sure you spend with what's shown on the screen and be able to take decisions fast.
Isaac, I just wonder, you know this probably more than I do, but with so many just streaming options and so much cinema out there, do you think the people know, you mentioned Fulci and Argento and Giallo cinema. Do you think there is an enhanced visual language with the more movies that are coming out? Or I remember Scorsese saying several years ago, is he was complaining how some filmmakers today don't look at movies in the past and they don't know how to compose a frame. You being a filmmaker yourself, just with more filmmakers out there, do you see an expansion of visual language, or do you think more people should go back and watch some of the Argento films, or really look into German expressionism and develop their language, no matter what budget they're working on?
I think it should be a combination of both. I mean, I try to do both. I try to watch always a lot of films. I try to watch, at least on a bad week, I would watch 4 films a week. And in a good week, I watch 5 films a week. I mean, that's all I can, because I also have to work and make movies and there's life, and I have 2 kids and everything. But I try to watch 4 films on a bad week, 5 films on a good week. I mean, I know people who watch like 20 films a week. I don't know how they manage, and maybe that's all they do. But you have to find a balance with everything. But I also know directors who say, I almost never watch films. It's hard to me to organize to watch a film. I think that's bad. And I think if your work is to tell a story in a visual medium, you need to be watching things all the time. And you need to be watching both things. To answer your question, you need to be watching what's being done now, like what's the most relevant thing that came out last week or this year. And at the same time, you need to be watching, what was done 50 years ago, because that's the only way you will actually be able to know, what are the modern tendencies. Maybe you have a great idea, it's been done before 1 month ago. Maybe you have a great idea that no one has done. Maybe you can do it better than something that came up a year ago. And at the same time, maybe it came up 50 years ago. But it's not only about ideas, it's also about, like you said, composing a frame, learning about mise en scene, about camera work, about visual storytelling, editing, all that. I think it's very important. And what I do is I choose directors who I want to analyze their work, and I would go once a week, like one movie of them every week. So that's a movie. So if I'm analyzing, if I'm doing the Coen brothers, I'm doing De Palma, I'm doing Hitchcock or Polanski or David Lynch or whatever, I would do one film of them every week, and then also I would do another older film every week, which is related to something I'm working on. And then the 2 other films I see this week will be modern new films, like new releases. And that way, my mind is always feeding from older references and newer references. So I think that's kind of like at least it's what has worked for me so much. That's what I recommend. Yeah.
I'm going to give you a really horrible cheat sheet question, but say, Isaac, in 5 to 10 years, if I was going to do the same thing with your films, and we're looking ahead to your body of work as well, what do you think, what kind of through lines will the average cinephile find in your work? Do you think they will find some kind of common thread that unites all of your films, or is it going to be like a Howard Hawks where you're just really diverse in no matter what you do? I mean, if you could look far ahead, where do you think you're going to land on that level?
Well, that's a good question, but I do hope there's a common thread. I hope the common thread is, apart from the evidence, which is all my films have like a small Easter egg connection connected with the previous one, and there is in parallel a connection with the similars. But apart from that, I would say maybe the common thread would be, something like the themes which I'm interested in exploring, which is usually related to identity, the passage of time, human ambition, and the way I like to use the fantastical element, whether if it's horror, sci-fi, or whatever, to reflect on something human, something that is very human. Also, in the that all would be. I mean, I don't see myself doing a romantic comedy right now. Maybe one day, who knows what will happen? But maybe all my films will be with the genre scope, which is either horror or sci-fi or thriller or supernatural thriller. Or so I think that would be maybe like the landscape where I hope all my movies will be located, whether if it's something I wrote or something I came up with in someone else's story, like was the case of Parallel.
I'm ashamed to say that I'm turning 50 next year, and just a year ago is when I started watching Mario Bava's work, and I just read this. I just listened to Quentin Tarantino talk about how Mario Bava's Black Sabbath, along with The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Sergio's film, were really important films when he was growing up. And Isaac, I'm wondering, you were a writer as well growing up and writing novels and stories, but can you name one or two specific films that really turned the light on for you and said to yourself, I'm going to become an artist, I'm going to become more than a writer, I'm going to become a filmmaker, and put it on my own canvas visually?
Well, I mean, definitely the work of Alejandro Amenabar, like Open Your Eyes, was a big influence for me. Like I was just so impressed by how he could have a film that could be, like a thriller, but also a drama, but also sci-fi. And I was absolutely mind blown by that movie. Also the others, I really like the essence of telling a story like a magician doing a trick, where when you finish a film, you have no idea how they pulled that trick up, So even some Shyamalan films, like some of the earlier works that he did, like Sixth Sense or Unbreakable, some Fincher movies like Fight Club or The Game, and also like I'm a huge fan of Stephen King. So even some stories that have nothing to do with genre, but something like The Shawshank Redemption, which is just like a super clean drama, like a story great told. Those were, I guess, some of my favorite movies growing up, and still some of my favorite movies now that really inspired me to. And then, when I was already studying film, I was very much more interested in, something like David Lynch or like Darren Aronofsky or like Tarantino, filmmakers that use more stylistic, interesting elements that you're like, oh, I want to do that in a movie, So those were also some of the directors that shaped my taste as I was already getting into film. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Love the film.
No, thank you so much, Greg, and I'm happy you enjoyed the film, and hopefully you can recommend everyone to watch it now on December 11th. Yeah.
All right. Take care, man.